Hi, good evening. I call the January 13th Board of Ed meeting to order at 7 p.m. Please rise for the moment of silence with Ms. Berculio.
Before we begin, I invite us to observe a moment of silence in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose legacy reminds us that both democracy and education are not only about knowledge, but about character, about learning when to speak up and use our voices wisely, respectfully, and in service of what is right. In his letter from Birmingham jail, Dr. King reminded us that just laws are grounded in moral law. He emphasized the responsibility placed on ordinary people to speak with courage, to facilitate peaceful dialogue, and to uphold our duty to one another and to our community. We also hold Renee Good in our thoughts today. May this moment call us to use our voices not for division, but for dignity and the common good. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Berculio. Fire evacuation. In the unlikely event of an emergency, I'm going to ask you to exit through those back doors, or you can exit through the side and go down the stairs and out the back door. Can we have roll call, please?
Ms. Berculio?
Present.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. Cushman?
Here.
Mrs. Gerard?
Here.
Mr. Gauss?
Here.
Mrs. Kiner?
Here.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Mrs. McGuire-Bruce?
Here.
Board Chair Pickett?
Here. All right, on to item 6A, our board guest, Sarah Brown. I'm going to ask you to come on forward as part of our NEASC, and I'm going to ask you to tell us what NEASC stands for. NEASC accreditation, us as a board need to receive a report from administration. So, Steve, anything you'd want to add before turning it over to Ms. Brown?
No, I think you took everything from me. So this fall, JFK Middle School completed their New England Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation visit. It is required upon our receipt of that report that the Board of Education is to hear the report within 60 days of our receipt. And Ms. Brown was nice enough to be able to join us this evening. So we have a lot of good news, and we have some next steps that we'll need to take as part of their recommendations.
All right, so a couple of my first opening statements were you just talked about. So I'm going to pretend that nothing was said yet. And tonight I'm going to share the results of our accreditation report. It was in October of 2025. So we had a visiting team, about 8 members, who came on Sunday night, and then they spent every day till Wednesday with us. And they worked really hard. They were at our school by 7, and then they were writing the report up until 9, 10 o'clock that night. And I was delivering dinner to them, and they were in their conference room working very diligently. So I definitely appreciate all of the work that they gave and the feedback that they gave us. So NEASC does stand for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. It oversees the accreditation process, not only for schools, but also some districts go through the accreditation. And the decennial visit really validates our progress since our collaborative conference that we had 2 years ago. And this is a different model than it used to be with NEASC. They used to come every 10 years or so, do an assessment, give their feedback, and then if there were areas of growth, we would have to write reports. They've changed that model, so now they have a collaborative conference, and then 2 years later, they come back for the decennial, and then we continue the work, and then that model will just repeat itself. But during the collaborative conference, we had to meet different expectations under their foundational elements and the 5 key standards and their principles to attain that accreditation. So to kind of talk about the decennial report, it's probably important to talk about the collaborative conference first, just to give you a little bit of insight. I know a lot of you are new to the board. But prior to that collaborative conference, we had to complete a self-study to reflect on our strengths, identify areas of improvement. We had to rate ourselves in that foundational, all the foundational elements, but then also each standard and the principles that fell underneath those standards. At the collaborative conference, the visiting team reviewed our self-study, the school improvement plan, our district data, and then they conducted classroom visits and different interviews with students, parents, and different staff members. So their report highlighted strengths and areas for improvement. And the next slide is a graphic. So this kind of fast forwards a little bit to the decennial, but you'll see all of our foundational elements between learning culture, student learning, professional practice, learning support, learning resources. You'll see where our school at the collaborative conference, where we rated ourselves, what the visiting team rated, and then the decennial, our school rating, and then the visitors rating. What was really nice is 2 of the members of our visiting team were also members of the collaborative conference, so they really were able to see the growth that we've done in the last 2 years. And then the 5 standards, learning culture, student learning, professional practices, learning support, and learning resources. So this really goes a little deeper into those foundational elements where you have standards and principles to assess all the different areas that are within. And how they rate all of those principles, there's different phases that you might be in as a school community. And I have to say that the school community and the visiting team did say that all of the principles we were either at developing or implementing. So we were in a good place at the collaborative and in the decennial. There's always areas to grow and improve on, but for everything, we definitely had things in place. They might have been in the infancy stages, but we definitely had a good foundation. So they, at the collaborative conference, they took those standards and principal ratings, and 6 principles were identified as developing, and 26 were implementing. So like I said, we were in a good spot to begin with. And a lot of the work that they had, they gave us 3 priority areas. And those 3 areas you're going to see from the decennial report changed a little bit. We actually had 4 priority areas in the end. But priority area number 1 was to their suggested action steps were to implement a formal process for school-wide data teams, employ more common formative and summative assessments, universal screeners, standardized assessments, and then triangulate all of our data with attendance, discipline, and early intervention team to identify appropriate student interventions. And I tell you all of this because we're going, another piece is last year we did a lot of this work. So you're going to see how we really set ourselves up for success for the decennial visit. For priority area number 2, include all stakeholders in the development of the portrait of a learner. Promote and publicize the school's core values, beliefs, and the portrait of a learner so they can be known and understood by all stakeholders. Again, we've started that work as a district. And then priority area number 3 was to provide a range of intervention strategies to support students academically, including tiered interventions, developing a formal referral and monitoring and follow-up process for students who are struggling, and then affording teachers opportunity to build their SEL capacity through ongoing SEL professional development opportunities. Again, a lot of items that we've been working on last year and into this year. So in preparation for the decennial visit, we took all the feedback from that collaborative conference and we started to work on the priority areas. So just to highlight some of the work that we did do, we increased the number of our math interventionists. We expanded our options for resource classes. We created 2 different reading courses to meet the needs of our students. And then in creating those different areas of support, we have a more streamlined process when we're looking at our student assistance team and our MTSS framework. So the decennial visit, it was very similar to the collaborative conference and how it is structured. It's just a day longer than the collaborative. But what they do is they still are looking at our self-reflection, our school improvement plan, district data. They go into classrooms and they spent a lot of time talking with our students specifically, but all of the members within the school community, including some of you. And then from that assessment, they create our decennial report. Again, they validate any strengths that we have, identify areas of growth, and then just affirm the alignment or misalignment with those NEASC standards. So this is similar to that slide, slide 4, where I had the comparison between our rating and the visiting team's rating for the collaborative and the decennial. This is just what the visiting team had identified for the decennial. So we have the elements that meet the standard and then the elements that did not meet the standard. And in a couple of other slides further, I'll go into a little bit more detail of what their suggestions for improvement were. Some key strengths that they commended us for: a strong, positive school culture where students feel safe and connected, robust social emotional learning foundations through programs like Ruler and Character Strong, increased use of data tools and collaborative practices, including EduClimber and the professional learning communities that we've put into place during our faculty meetings, expanded intervention supports through MTSS, including that math and reading intervention, inclusive practices such as co-teaching and resource classes, and then the early stage implementation of our Portrait of a Learner framework with staff buy-in. So areas that the visiting team highlighted in their report help create new priority areas. So written curriculum, we do have curriculum, but it was more of what do we have for the public when it comes to scope and sequence, which we're working on as a district on our website. That implementation of Portrait of a Learner, we have been working on a draft of a formalized plan for MTSS, and it aligns with what we already have in place at the elementary level. Instructional practices, they were very impressed with our STEAM classes, science, and math, and how engaging the classrooms are with building thinking classrooms and a lot of hands-on activities. And they wanted to see more of that within some of the other content areas. And then the SEL implementation, they want us to start to use more data in how we approach SEL and how we're embedding it within the curriculum. So from that, we have, like I said, 4 priority areas, and you might wonder why 4? You had 3 for the collaborative. Because we've done some of the work already, we're just at, we kind of gone to the next level, and they wanted to kind of break apart some of those priority areas because they were becoming too cumbersome. So that's why we have 4. They didn't feel that it was that we were declining in any of the work that we're doing. It's just we kind of went to the next level, and they wanted to kind of push us a little bit. So we're not just at that developing stage, we're in that next phase of transformation. So it's really just to get us ready to go to that next phase. So priority area number 1, some recommended next steps: to establish a comprehensive, accessible data system for all educators, and that is essentially EduClimber. So we're definitely looking at that. I know for attendance, we've been looking at that daily just to see the trends and identify students. Facilitating interdisciplinary teamings in grades 7 and 8. And they felt that that was a really big need for us. It got brought up so many times by staff members and parents that, teams just made such a difference. And when we lost them, and then now we have them back in 6th grade, they were showing just how much work is getting done during those team meetings and how it's needed for 7th and 8th grade. And then just making sure that we have Tier 1 for SEL, but also really having concrete Tier 2 instruction within the classroom. For priority area number 2, now this is more of a district level initiative of when we're looking at Portrait of a Learner. So this would be something that we would do as a district, making sure we have an alignment, but having ICANN statements that really align to each CLIMB skill to define what we're looking for in our students, defining what proficiency looks like for each aspect within the Portrait of a Learner, and then integrating opportunities for students to practice those skills and then receive feedback, and embedding that CLIMB embedding climb within the curriculum, so that we're having it not just as a theme for us, but it's in instruction and assessment practices. Priority area number 3. We have done a ton of work this year on this priority area already, so I'm really excited that we'll probably be able to get this off the list pretty quickly, since I have to do a report next year and then a 3-year and a 6-year report. This one with the MTSS model, we really have been working hard at having tiered interventions, referral protocols, and then progress monitoring. Again, the elementary level did a really nice job of creating a document that we could kind of model after at the secondary level, and having the math interventionist for each grade and the 2 different levels of reading has really helped us in being able to give students what they need to see if we can target different skills to either help them progress and get out of those classes, or if they do need more support, moving them through that SAT process. And then if they still need further help, we move to referral and go to PPT. And then just strengthening communication with MTSS with our Families Through Parent Square, and that's something I do during our monthly newsletters. We have what we're doing for Tier 1 instruction for SEL. We have what teachers might be doing for MTSS within the classrooms. That's more Tier 1. So parents have some type of a template of what we're doing each month within the classroom. And then priority area number 4, establishing a curriculum revision cycle to evaluate and revise our curriculum for each content area. And they really, there's a lot of science people on the visiting team. They really loved our science classrooms. So they felt that the more we could have model our science classrooms in the other content areas, they would be really happy about. They just were so impressed of how much hands-on, but how much collaboration our students have with one another, and the discourse that they had. It was at such a high level. And then just continuing to provide professional development on best practices for instruction, and including strategies for successful differentiation. They did say that we have a very wide variety of need with our students, and just making sure that we're meeting all the needs of our students is very important. So in conclusion, NEASC affirmed that JFK has a strong foundation, our safe and inclusive culture, committed staff, and that we have clear systems emerging. Our challenges, they do feel that, a lot of what we have for challenges are just we need to finish the plans that are in place, and that we're very at the foundation level when it comes to MTSS formation, portrait of a learner, and then just really taking our instruction and like kind of bringing it up a notch. It's just, not that we don't have rigor, but we could have more of it more frequently. And that is it. So any questions? I feel like I talked really fast, so I apologize.
You did great. Thank you. That was a lot of information. My hope is that we can get this information in our Friday update. We will take a moment to ask any immediate questions. I'll just proactively say to board guests, I know it's a lot to get at one time, so if you have any questions or concerns that come up after tonight's meeting, just send me an email so we can make sure we collect them all in one spot. I'll just quickly share, as you were speaking, I was having these could be great follow-up conversations to have in some of our subcommittees. So I know multi-tiered systems of support, SAT, student assistant teams, intervention, that could be a great discussion. I know we're having some thoughts about how do we share that information more widely as a district. So thank you so much. Questions? Go ahead, Ms. McGuire-Bruce.
Thank you. So the team that was selected at JFK to kind of go through with the people from NEASC, how was that selected? Was that them just random, or was that
It was. So I'm actually going to be participating on a NEAS visiting team in March, and they asked for volunteers, and there was one individual who actually works for NEAS that was part of the visiting team, and then, like I said, there were 2 people that came from the collaborative. They loved JFK the last time, and they felt that they had gotten a lot of best practices to bring back to their own school, so they wanted to come back for the decennial.
And was there people from JFK on that committee with them too? Like you said, they were talking to like different teachers. Was that a committee or was that just questions through the interview process?
It was just questions through the interview process.
Okay. And then just quickly too, I know Amanda just kind of mentioned it. We've been talking about having some curriculum conversations about things being more accessible to families. So I think that that's good evidence for that. And then also curriculum work possibly when you're talking about the climb skills. Obviously, we know as educators it's important that the words are not just what the students are learning, and it's actionable steps that can be authentic for them. So that might be some work to look at in curriculum as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perculia?
I'm just wondering, I've seen MTSS structured a few different ways. And so I was just curious, is it solely academic or are there also SEL concerns included in your MTSS structure?
So SAT process and MTSS are really hand in hand. So within our SAT process, we have behavioral and we have academic attendance. So we have it all kind of structured that way. So that way when we're looking at if it's a behavioral or social emotional concern, we have different interventions put in place. We're again, infancy stages, we're looking at how we can really have like some type of a universal screener so we can hopefully be able to identify students. Right now, it's more of, if we see them presenting as having struggles, but we don't have certain things in place just because we're still building that part of the plane, if you will.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you don't currently have a data collection system for SEL concerns?
Well, we have a way to collect them, but a formalized, I know we don't have that embedded within EduClimber yet, but that will happen. So it's just, we're slowly getting there.
Thanks.
Mr. Kober?
Awesome. Thank you, Principal Brown, for coming in and providing the overview. I just had some broad questions. Could you just give a little background on NEASC? Have we always had that accreditation? Is there any beyond just saying we're NEASC accredited? Is there any other benefits of having that accreditation?
So since I've been at JFK 21 years, and this was our third NEASC visit, if you will. But again, this is a little bit of a different model this time. So the first 2, it was that old model that I had spoken about. And then this last time, it was that collaborative and decennial. Personally, I think what we get for benefits out of it is the conversations with other educators from other schools, suggestions. It's a different lens within the education system that is there. I learned a lot as a leader. I got a lot of great ideas, and that's one reason why I want to go on a visit myself, because I want to see what other schools are doing. I'll be going to Rhode Island. So very interesting what another state might have in place and what can we learn and what can I bring back to JFK. So I think those are the big benefits, is just that collaboration. It's technically free PD, if you will, because they're coming in and doing an assessment, or you can go and learn more from another school.
No, that's awesome. And do you happen to know, do they assess elementary and secondary, or is it more focused on just secondary schools?
So traditionally, they'll do more high schools. It has become more of a trend for middle schools to get accredited, but they're also now moving towards having a whole district go through their accreditation process. And they actually recommended that we do at some point, but they felt that some of the work that we're doing as a district when it comes to MTSS and our Portrait of a Learner, we would benefit from waiting a little bit longer and then having them come in, so that way they can kind of do an assessment of where we're at once we have things established.
Great answer, because I was going to jump in for you on that one. So I would also share, actually, earlier today when I was at the Hartford Area Superintendent's meeting, This is probably the third or fourth different presentation from NEASC that I've seen, and it's all regarding their district accreditation process. So I spoke to two of the gentlemen today in terms of where we're at. I mean, there's work that we need to have completed first in terms of getting in place portrait of a learner, things of that nature. And we're also on the crux of a major change within the district, potentially, related to if the pre-referendum work continues. It is something that I know we've discussed within cabinet. It is something that we're beginning to look at. And the other piece that I would say is that the benefit of this, and I'm very happy that Ms. Brown said that she's excited for the opportunity to go off, because as a person who has sat on an accrediting team, it is some of the best professional development that you're going to go through as an administrative leader. It really forces you to dig in and get to know the standards and be able to evaluate the standards. The benefit for the district in terms of why the high school, the middle school are currently going or have dealt with this in the past, you really need to look at this as every once in a while you need to open up the hood of your car and take a look underneath it just to make sure that everything's running really well and relate it back to the standards of how it should be running. That's really what this process is about. And in the engagement from the staff to be part of this is a huge piece of it. So it is incredibly cumbersome in terms of the time, the energy, and the effort. So major compliments and accolades from our side of this in terms of going through it, and I'll save some other comments for the end because I know I just jumped into the middle of your questions.
Awesome, not a problem, thank you. And then my last thing, and this is more of a comment instead of a question through the chair to the superintendent, would we be able to get an actual, in our weekly update, the PDF of the final report in addition to the summary presentation? Outstanding. Thank you.
And eventually, we do have to make it available on the website, so that way everyone will be able to see the full report. And it might be beneficial for us to put the collaborative visit or the collaborative conference report and the decennial so everyone can see the difference between the two, since they are so related.
Mr. Gauss?
Well, thank you for that, Ms. Brown. It's really encouraging to see that there's a plan in place to improve academics, but you mentioned one particular area, and I'm just interested in how that process works. When you mentioned the math interventionists and how they're improving things, how does that work? Do they work like one-on-one, or will they find a group of kids with similar issues that they're trying to address?
So we identify students who are struggling through iReady and teacher recommendation. And then what is great about iReady is it actually will pull out where the students are struggling, since it is differentiated to their level. And then the teachers will create lessons that are around those areas that they need to improve on. And then what we do is we progress monitor how they're doing. And then the only piece that's a little different for secondary, and I know we've talked about this in curriculum, is that we kind of have to go by the marking term in the semester rather than a true MTSS framework of 6 weeks. It's pretty close, but it's not perfect to what an elementary level would have, where they have that 6-week moment where they say, all right, now do we move to the next tier, or can we have them not take any intervention time? So that's the only part that's a little different in the middle school model. But right now we're evaluating. We have our winter diagnostic for math. And what we'll do is we'll review those scores the end of this week, beginning of next week, and decide whether students need to continue on with Math Learning Lab or they can graduate, as we say, and then they get another elective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Kiner, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, years ago, there were conferences that were put on by NEASC, and I was wondering if they're still doing that and if JFK teachers are given the opportunity to attend these conferences.
So if a teacher wants to go on one of the visits, which is probably what they that would be one option for them. As long as they want to help within our own process, then they're more than welcome to go on a visit. And we have had teachers do that in the past. And I know that NEASC has put on a lot of different conferences lately. They've been really focused around Portrait of a Learner, so the steering committee has gone to those conferences. But lately, I haven't seen anything that is geared more towards our educators, but if there was something, we, of course, would support them being part of that.
Very good, thank you.
Ms. McGuire-Bruce.
Sorry, I thought of one more. This is why I need to process. You said SEL with Fidelity, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Homeroom option, homeroom B. I know there used to be homeroom B. Is that something you're looking at as to how to support teachers in doing it with Fidelity? Because it's a challenge to fit it in their 47-minute classes. So yes, but I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it in the way some of us would like it for next year. I think what really will need to happen is a revamp of our entire schedule, which we would not be able to do for next year because the scheduling process has already begun. Yeah.
But we definitely think we need to revamp the schedule so we can have some of that time embedded in.
Yeah.
But also, we've done a lot of work with our restorative practice training this year. Our team has tried different activities to see what works, what doesn't. So when we're creating our Safe School Climate Plan, we can embed a lot of that restorative piece into our plan. So I would love to see how it works next year with what we have planned to then build that schedule so we know what works and what doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did that spark any other questions for folks? If
Any
something
others? Kelsey?
comes up, please feel free to send me an email. I will just say as my closing comments, and I think this is kind of a perfect segue, I was excited to see the alignment. I think accreditation is important because it demonstrates that we are meeting some standards that are nationally known. I think it helps students know that we're part of a school system that at least holds these standards. So if they're moving or transient families, I think it gives some status to what we are providing as far as our education, and the fact that those are defined by an outside organization that says what good education is about, I think is helpful. The other thing that I think was helpful in your presentation is this isn't just an additional added item. It aligns to what we have heard with our district improvement plan, our Portrait of a Graduate work. So it's nice to see this isn't just something, again, another plan that you're going to write and do another thing for, that there's cohesion across what we're doing. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing the presentation and the full report, and keep up the great work at the middle school.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think just to wrap this up, a few of you have mentioned this, and I think you were alluding to it, some of the others. You're going to hear some of this information again, because it's all going to be wrapped up as part of the budget process. So some of these recommendations that are made obviously have budgetary implications. I know we're looking at things through the curricular lens, transparency of our curriculum, needing to be front-facing in terms of the website. All of that work is happening behind the scenes, so it's reaffirming that they're seeing the same things that we're seeing, that we're already working on in terms of Portrait of a Learner as well. So you will hear some of the items that came out of this NEASC report as evidence for when I present the budget. So it's going to keep coming back up again. But thank you again, Ms. Brown, for coming and explaining everything to everybody this evening. And please share our compliments to the entire staff for all the hard work.
Awesome. We will move to student rep update. Again, excited to have student reps here. I'm going to remind you both about how important your perspective is. We have some really important upcoming meetings with our budget presentation, calendar, some policy. Again, I'm just going to remind you, you can participate in any discussion. You can't vote, but just putting a little precursor out there. So excited for your update tonight, and I think I'm going to defer to you to go first.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to start off by reflecting on something from before the new year. So students had come up with the idea for a winter assembly. The band, orchestra, and the chorus performed, and then we ended the assembly with a fun game of Family Feud. And it definitely helped with school spirit right before the break, and a lot of students liked it. So I'm wondering if that will be something we'll be continuing next year. The Blues and Beyond group will be coming back to Enfield High on February 13th and the 19th. And this is an educational group that celebrates Black history and culture through music. Students had a great time last year. It was very inclusive and very informative. So we are excited for them to come back. The Hobie Award winners have been released. The primary representative is Brinley Hutchings, and the runner-up was Mackenzie Moore, but they will both be attending the conference in June this year. Culinary has a bingo fundraiser on January 23rd, and there will also be raffles to support their trip to compete in Florida. The Spanish National Honor Society has extended their book drive. It'll be going on through April. Once again, they're taking any language books, not just Spanish, and these will be donated throughout the Enfield school system. The Enfield High class of 2026 is having a fundraiser on January 21st at Hot Table, and the fundraiser will run from 4 to 8 p.m., so be sure to swing by, grab some food, and support the graduating class. And finally, as you guys know, we sent out a survey a while ago regarding student concerns. The top priority was college and career readiness and exploration for careers. So we are currently in the process of formatting and sending out a new survey to kind of dive deeper into these results and get more of like a precise feel for what students are thinking at Enfield High. So stay tuned for the next couple of meetings. We'll have some more results for you guys. Chase.
We will definitely be interested in that, so make sure that we get some additional information. Chase.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be back. The class of 2027 is having their fundraiser at Moe's on the 21st, so stop by, get some good food, and support the class of 2027. The Enfield High wrestling team is hosting a tournament this weekend at EHS. On February 3rd, there's going to be a brief assembly for juniors and seniors to celebrate Enfield High School's Apple Distinguished School Honor and our award-winning Buzz Robotics team. And the program of studies night will be on Thursday, February 5th. So that night is geared towards incoming freshmen and anyone interested in learning more about the course offerings, sports, clubs, and other activities at Enfield High. Congratulations to Emily Gorley and Maya Morin on receiving the Best Delegation Award at the University of Hartford's Model UN Conference. And lastly, midterms are starting next Thursday. So good luck to all students taking exams. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chase. All right, Steve, up to you for your update.
First of all, it's very interesting that we heard about college career pathways coming from the kids. Yeah. So earlier today, I took part in the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents. We had a kickoff press conference because CAPS has now partnered with Cardona Solutions. Everybody remembers Commissioner, former Secretary of Education Cardona, who's now contracted to work with CAPS across the state. Because one of the number one things we're seeing across the state is a huge disparity between the ability for the kids to be able to have their college and career pathways, depending on where you are, depending on the city you're in, depending on the district you're in, depending on the opportunity with different organizations. Like, for example, if you're down in Groton, an electric boat is right there. You have the ability to do something there. We obviously don't have electric boat up here. The difficulty in terms of our kids being able to get access to college and career credits or micro-credentialing or things like that through the community college program versus our ability to get kids ECE credit. So all of that work was discussed and sort of unveiled today as part of our press conference, so it should be out in the news somewhere by now. Please take a look at it. You will be hearing more and more about it because really the first 3 to 6 months is going to be about collecting of information so that we can review it and begin to move forward. The goal is to have sort of a statewide, more systemic approach to doing this versus individual district approach. So very interesting that that came up from the kids because we're all thinking the same thing. I'm surprised the kids didn't mention this, the student reps, but no school on Monday. Next Monday, we obviously have no school on the 19th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That's for students and staff. Reminder for all of the parents or students that wish to participate, we did push out a Portrait of a Learner visual representation contest. It's a student design contest. I would just emphasize, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a perfect, these are all about ideas and things that you can generate, and then we will work with the kids, we will work with the graphics departments to polish them up, to have them be the end result. But there will be an elementary and a secondary winner, and the idea of that contest is it would be a visual representation of our CLIMB acronym. Deadline for that is February 27th. If any kids are interested, any students are interested, please see an administrator in your building. I will tell you that I continue to work with town office and the town manager regarding our meetings that we're setting up. We've identified 2026 some shared meeting dates so that we can continue that communication that we mentioned as we presented the town audit. That will become even more important as our budget presentations will begin to the board on January 27th. Speaking of town council, just for, as everybody I'm sure is aware, and you watched the town council meeting last Monday, we were notified, or they mentioned the possibility of an additional appropriation to the Board of Education. This was something that was brought to myself and Chairperson Pickett just prior to the holiday. So we had some time, a little bit of time to be able to put together some possible appropriations. I just like everybody to know that, or be aware that the decisions that are being made regarding when and if this appropriation occurs are being, we're being very careful. I want to be very careful about what we're choosing about possible expenditures. The idea of the additional appropriation is, I'm all for it. I'd be more than happy to accept additional funding. But I also don't want to be putting the Board of Education in a position that we create a cliff for ourselves in the future by how we go about spending it. So what we have done is utilized all of that information that I have received regarding budget requests. And we've worked with Cabinet to identify the items that we may potentially purchase if the appropriation is actually made. These would be one-time expenditures, so we're talking about objects more than people, supplies, if you will. Any staff that I would include within that would be staff that I would have already had appropriated or had included in my budget presentation that you would see. So I wouldn't be doing anything that's above and beyond what I already wanted to have put into the budget. It would just allow us to potentially start a little sooner with those folks. Lastly, nothing has happened to date. There has been no purchase orders, there have been no invoices, there have been no requisitions. Nothing will occur out of our business office in terms of purchasing until or when and if that additional appropriation is made. So I just want everybody to sort of, those sort of the facts of where we are right now. I will wait to hear. I believe it's next Monday, potentially this will come back up again. As soon as I know, I'm sure you know, or we'll all watch at the same time from our individual homes. Lastly, reminder, we have coming up on February 4th, our community conversation number 3, related to the pre-referendum work. So I'm going to sort of remind everybody of this every time I can and from the microphone. And the theme of this particular conversation is finalizing the plan, the long-term vision, and the first step. This is an in-person session, so we'll be over at Enfield High School in the auditorium. And really what it's about is to catch everybody up in terms of where we are to date, answer any questions that people may have, refinement of the option, or the preferred option that the committee is looking to move forward, and the first step in terms of a referendum being able to occur in the future. So again, February 4th, 6 to 7 p.m., Enfield High School. All of the information can be found on our district website. I believe we made some adjustments to our website as well as the town website, so it should be easily found. And I believe that's everything for me.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Yep.
Question. So just a quick question through the chair to the superintendent. I know in our last weekly update, you gave a quick overview on like pupil services data. I didn't know if you could just highlight some of that publicly. I know we've had a lot of discussions going back to the internal controls audit, and as we get into budget, that there's some budgetary impact when students move in with IEPs versus move out, the net numbers changing. And I believe from that weekly update, there was a increase. So I didn't know if you could just speak to that briefly.
Mr. Kober, is this outside of the like district enrollment update that we got before the break? Like, so we just had a public presentation on our enrollment numbers, and we had somewhat of a discussion about new students who have moved in. I just want clarification on what you're asking
Correct.
for.
Yeah, I believe, but this number may have been different than what we had seen. And I don't want to say the number because I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know going back a couple years ago when it went up by like 78, that had a budgetary impact, and I believe we may be getting close to that.
As the board is aware, every Friday I give you a weekly update. This last Friday's weekly update included an update related to pupil services. Pupil services, there are currently 1,030 active students with an IEP in the district, and I think the number you're looking for is 96. Though there are 96 new IEP students who have moved into the district since August 28th. 7 new since November. I think that's the number you're probably referencing.
Correct. That was on the top of my mind. I just wanted to, again, make sure we discuss that publicly in case budgetary impacts. Thank you.
Thanks. And I would just quickly share that's such a hard number because it varies year to year.
Most volatile area of your budget.
Yep. And student IEP supports and services vary so much dependent on student to student. But thank you, Phil, thank you, Mr. Kober, for raising that update. Public comments. I will do my quick spiel. It's the usual, many of the usual faces, but a couple new. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A few reminders before we begin. Each speaker will have 4 minutes. Please share your name and relationship to the district. This is a time for comments. It's not a conversation or Q&A with the board. Our role is governance of the district, so please frame your remarks accordingly. Also remember that all comments become part of public record. In keeping with board policy and state law, we ask that you avoid sharing information that's confidential, including personally identifiable student information or specific personnel matters, which can't be addressed in this public forum. We appreciate your respectful decorum. Thanks for being here and your commitment to our schools. And Maureen, it looks like you're ready.
Yes, I am. Maureen Griffin, mom. Happy to hear what you said, Steve, about the possible usages of the rumored funds coming through, that they will be one time, but building towards what we need. One thing that I want to comment about that is that people are suggesting, or did suggest, that the district doesn't really need to get that money. They can just, or get it soon. It can be put off and put off, and they can just start using the money that they have in the reserve fund, the non-lapsing fund, in planning for that money. I just want to remind people we just had an audit where 2 of their primary points were we don't budget or spend based on promised, hoped for, pie in the sky funding. We don't do that. That's something that happened in the past and left us in a precarious situation. We also need to have a non-lapsing fund, a reserve for higher numbers than anticipated in certain areas. To use that right now to hopefully get a jump start on things is talking out both sides of the mouth. Can't do that. If we're going to pay attention to what the audit said, we actually have to follow it. So please continue to follow it. Next, let's see. Got things all over here. Regarding what the presentation we had, I'd love to hear more about the referral process at JFK and what has changed in it, how it's been improved, and the data that shows that there's actually been improvements. And one other area, unless you are 100% indigenous, you have immigrants in your lineage. You are no less or more valuable or human because of your nationality. The diversity of our district is an asset, not a liability. I would like to know what sort of supports are being made available for students and families that have immigrants, recent immigrants in their families, and they may be feeling extra stress due to current events. And is there a policy that has been communicated to staff and to families about how things will be handled should members of ICE approach the district, approach the school buses, approach the families? What is the policy for staff? What is the supports for the families? And who does the family call if they have questions? And we see in Minnesota, districts have had to go to remote learning so that their families feel safe. Are we planning? God help us, I hope we don't need to use it, but we need to be planned for. Thank you.
Thank you. Darlene.
Hello, good evening. I'm Darlene McCrae, and I'm an officer of the Enfield Elks. And I wanted to talk about the Enfield Elks Lodge 2222 and the drug awareness contest that we're inviting Enfield students in grades 3 to 12 to participate. The contest is called Drugs Are a Grave Mistake. There's different contest levels, whether it's a poster, essay, or video, and the deadline is February 12th to be submitted to our lodge. The Elks are definitely committed to eliminating the use and abuse of illegal drugs by all members of our society, and believe that in order to ensure a bright future for our country, it is essential that our children be raised in a drug-free environment. Winners of each phase will progress to the next level and then could receive national level recognition. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the Elks for those who may not know. The Elks is a fraternal organization, and this year we will be celebrating our 158th anniversary. There are 30 Elks Lodges in Connecticut, 1,800 across the country with over 800,000 members. The Elks Lodge 2222 here in Enfield has 262 members, and we'll be celebrating our 65th anniversary this May. We're going to have a big gala. My husband and I are both officers. We've been there for 13 years, actively involved, and our heart is in it. The Elks members of Connecticut have donated over $200,000 to the Elks National Foundation. That foundation then gives back donations, grants, for the community through state major projects, scholarships, I mentioned scholarships earlier, and funding for veterans. There are many grants that we receive from them. It's in veterans. There's a Freedom Grant, $1,000 for veterans. We donated over $6,000 in supplies to our Enfield Warming Center recently. And last year we donated like $3,500 to the 5 local soup kitchens, including Enfield Loaves and Fishes and Champs. We've supported sporting and events like our Elks Hoop Shoot, our Elks Soccer Shoot that we still continue on Shaker Road, but we used to do it Family Day when Enfield had it. We have also donated our Elks Lodge for many of Enfield functions, whether it's an Enfield Police Unity Tour. We did the 8th grade dance and Ramblers meetings and Enfield Little League. So we do a lot of donating of our halls, including we also do cash donations to many. Connecticut Children's Foundation is the biggest for Safe Kids. We've donated over $18,000 in the last 4 years by having a Jerry's Right event. Special Olympics, Network Against Domestic Abuse. We've also donated last year bike helmets for the Enfield Rotary Bike Rodeo. Working with Thompsonville Fire Department now on purchasing like $1,700 worth of bike helmets, smoke detectors. We have kids' holiday parties. We do food baskets at Christmas time. We participate in the Outrun Addiction. That's at the Enfield Annex. We are currently volunteering every Saturday, well, the first Saturday of every month at Enfield Loaves and Fishes, a group of us. So we're here to support the community any way we can. If there's anything that you need from us, please ask us. What's the worst thing we could do? We could say no, but we could say yes. I don't think we've said no for anything that anyone has asked us for. So we really like to be involved in more of student activities. We have many projects, dictionary project, a heritage project, scholarships, sporting events, drug awareness, everything we can do, we want to do for the students. And I feel like folks don't realize we could do so much more for you. We just have to ask. We make money to give it away. We did over 8,500 in non-cash donations this fiscal year. We're April 1st to the end of March, and over 4,100 in cash donations. So we're here to help.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for what you do for our community.
That was in 4 minutes.
You were just a few seconds over, but you did great.
Just like her daughter.
Yep. All right, we will move on to item 9, board member comments. I will look for volunteers. Mr. Kober.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll begin just by taking a moment to wish everybody a Happy New Year 2026 and welcome back from the winter break. I think apart from some inconsistent weather and temperatures, it seems like students and staff are transitioning back to their work and school routines, and it's been a smooth transition. Beyond this month bringing a wave of New Year's resolutions, January provides us a couple of observances to highlight. It is National Mentoring Month, a time that celebrates mentoring and the positive effect it can have on young lives. We should recognize this opportunity to ensure young people in our communities have dependable people they can look up to and follow in their footsteps. January is also Teen Driving Awareness Month. In fact, the Enfield High School is hosting a teen safe driving video contest, which is an opportunity for students to showcase their creativity while promoting an important message, safe driving habits. Students in the ages of 14 to 18 need to create a 45-second video promoting safe driving by the deadline of February 2nd. For a chance to win up to $1,250 in Visa gift cards and $5,000 for your school. This is a contest sponsored by Travelers Insurance, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, DOT, and the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV. During our last meeting, the superintendent and town manager presented us a summary of the internal controls audit that had been ordered and paid for by the town council pursuant to a MOU we had entered with them. What was presented to us at the board on December 9th was a shortened version of the same public presentation that was made to the town council earlier by the company that was selected for that audit, which was Clifton Larson Allen, also known as CLA. I did take the time to go back and watch the council meeting as well as thoroughly read the report that was provided to us. I personally would have appreciated if the firm could have presented directly there to us and allow the opportunity for questions. While some of my counterparts at the last meeting did ask some of the questions to the superintendent and the town manager at the time, sometimes I understand it's harder for a third party to have information as they weren't the ones that put it together. I am interested in hearing why elected officials, including members of the BOE and council, during that period were not interviewed, as well as the previous district superintendent. Nonetheless, I'm glad we've been and are continuing to implement findings and recommendations from this assessment. And I agree that we should look optimistically to the future. That being said, we still can't ignore mistakes or errors, and we must consider lessons learned in future decisions. I sometimes still struggle with processing our previous, and in a sense almost our current, budgetary process, where a lot of times what we report as total expenditures or total spending is realistically net spending and not gross spending, based off of how we compensate for offsets, revenues, and reimbursements that are not part of our municipal appropriation. This variation between net spend and gross spend can probably best be seen in the CSDE Profile and Performance Report, which the 2024-2025 report was just published and is available on EdSite CT. This report happens to show our expenditure data for the 2023-2024 school year, and this report claims our true aggregate total expenditures as $94,526,645, which was different than obviously our budget for that year, which I believe was in the number of about $75 million. and this is compensating as well for town maintenance of our school. So I understand there is a difference there. During the January 4th meeting of the council, I also learned that that body was considering two actions directly related to us as a board. One was the cancellation of the MOU in place following the fiscal shortfall, and another one for supplemental appropriation to us in the area of approximately $320,000. As far as cancellation of that MOU, I don't see any contention there, as the notion of the council appropriating funding for us to carve out a portion of that funding to give back to them is definitely silly. I am not thrilled with the process of how it came up publicly at the council and not through any joint leadership meetings between the board and the council or as part of the budgetary process. Nevertheless, canceling the MOU is something I would fully endorse as a board member and as a tax-paying resident. As for the proposed motion on a supplemental appropriation, I was surprised to really hear it for the first time at a public meeting of the council, and confused at first as to why it came up, as it wasn't necessarily consistent with our policy and state law, our board policy 3171 and Connecticut statute 10222. This reads in part where if any occasion arises whereby additional funds are needed by such board, the chairman of such board will notify the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, or appropriating authority as the case may be, and so submit a request for additional funds in the same manner as provided for, and it goes on. So it's basically saying, if we need money, we need to request it. To my knowledge, this did not happen, nor would the board chair have been able to submit a written request without board action. Additionally, based on the reports and records I've seen to date, we do have a healthy budget, and we're projecting to end this current fiscal year as of June 30, which will end June 30th of 2026 with a surplus. As we have mentioned in Finance Committee meetings and possibly we'll mention tonight, this is predominantly driven by vacant positions in the current year budget. So with this in mind, there's no legal standing or rationale for us to be appropriated extra funds for this FY. If we, as the board or the superintendent, want to increase our spending, we reserve the right, and we do have unencumbered funds that would be available to just do that. Moreover, the town council is our fiscal authority and has the power to appropriate us funding. However, determining line item spending lies solely within the purview of the board in accordance with our policies and approved budget, and is subject to the implementation of the superintendent. So I say that all of this for two reasons. One, I believe in transparency and the public right to know about what is occurring. And two, I believe in accountability when it comes to finance and leadership decisions. Without any justifiable fiscal or educational need for more money, this seems a little more politically motivated to showcase some public officials as supporting education or coming through in campaign promises. This is not the way we should be doing our budget. Once the board builds and approves a budget for next year, I look forward to the council to put their money where their mouth is and appropriate our approved budget. Until we get to that point, let the appointed administrators and the elected representatives in the Board of Ed that govern the Enfield Public Schools do what we do. I know we'll be getting a more formal update later this evening during our committee report. I did just want to make some generic comments regarding the PK through 5 pre-referendum. This group is beginning to finalize the recommendations for the project. As mentioned by the superintendent, another community conversation will occur in early February. I encourage not just direct stakeholders, but everybody in the community to begin reviewing some of the products and presentations that are out there. This is something that will be a significant expenditure for the town, even if you take in state reimbursement, and it will relate to the future of education services here in town. Now is the best time for your input. Share your thoughts and concerns, either with the committee at this stage or once it gets passed with the committee, directly to the board or the council. Once it gets to the point that the referendum appears on a public ballot, your voice is limited to voting yes or no. I kind of speak to this a little bit as some of my thoughts on enrollment will directly affect this project. While program and services have been growing throughout the last few years and decades, we've seen enrollment kind of declining. Going back to the 1970s, we had over 13,000 students here in Enfield. As recently presented to us at our enrollment report, in our school enrollment is 4,519 students. Prior to the pre-ref company being hired, the district had separately contracted with Peter Prouda to provide an updated enrollment projections, predominantly for budgeting purposes. Just using one snippet of them, Mr. Prouda's enrollment projection for the year 2035 shows our declining enrollment continuing, putting us at about 4,100 students, while the current pre-ref Tecton-related firm has a higher projection, putting us at about 4,600, which is similar to where we are with very mild growth. While the project is continuing with the higher number, I think we're more realistically heading to the lower numbers, based on historic trends, the median age of our residents, and the state of economy, and to be frank, people having less children. So, again, I say this as the conversations now are the time to have them as the pre-ref is going through, and you have the opportunity for community conversations. Concluding my comments tonight in the spirit of the new year, coming from the Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kober. Ms. Gerard?
Just a quick comment. Thank you for coming out and speaking, Mom especially, Darlene. As an Elks member myself, the work that they put into everything that they do there is absolutely fantastic. They do everything they can to help the community in a whole. So honestly, reach out to them and do what you can. If you're looking to have some type of school event there as well, ask. It is something that they're willing to do. Again, they stated the JFK events. They've had some of the JFK events there, and they're willing to help as far as like the hall goes, because sometimes that can get really pricey. So as an Elks member myself, I really appreciate everything that they do for the families that are within the Elks community, and then also outside of it too. So just be there and supportive.
Ms. Kiner?
Yes, hi. As liaison from the Prudence Crandall, I have a message from Andrew Dupere. He says, we hope everyone enjoyed their winter vacation. It is wonderful to have the students back in school as we jump right back into the heart of the academic year. Progress reports will be issued this Friday, January 16th, via Parent Square. If you have any issues accessing them, please contact the office. Our PTO meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 20th at 6:30 p.m. Please see the newsletter for the link. And our January Pride Assembly has been rescheduled to Tuesday, February 3rd at 9:45 a.m. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Mr. Gauss?
I need to move this where I can see it too, because believe it or not, I have notes. So I would like to first address a couple things that came up, to support a couple things that came up during comments from both the audience and Ms. Gerard. I think the whole idea of the Elks coming presenting is great. I'm a member of many fraternities myself, and it's a shame that those organizations, Elks, Moose, JCs, Lions, all of them are not as supported as they once were. It would really be great to have more of those in our community. So I just wanted to say that. And it's great to see the students are interested in college and career paths and stuff, but because I always support this, I just always want to make sure that technical schools and apprenticeships receive the same zeal when it comes to support for the students and that choose those career paths. Mr. Kober pretty much covered everything I wanted to say about the town council meeting last Monday. I was disappointed to find out that Councilor Matthews said the Board of Education was in favor of receiving it when we hadn't heard a word. That was very disappointing. And now, here comes something that happened over the holidays. I was approached by a young lady who's a student at JFK. She told me that sometimes she's made to feel uncomfortable and has to leave the restroom because someone of the opposite sex has entered. None of our young students should be made to feel uncomfortable in public in their most vulnerable state. Generally, when we receive comments or complaints as board members, we're supposed to bring those concerns to the superintendent. In this case, there was no need because there is a policy in place that addresses this situation. That policy, which was adopted on February 23rd, 2021, is policy number 5145.53, transgender and gender nonconforming youth. which I will submit to the recording secretary in its entirety to be included within the minutes of this meeting, and I will read the paragraph relevant to the student's concern right now. Restroom accessibility. Students shall have access to the restroom that corresponds to their gender identity consistently asserted at school. Any student who has a need or desire for increased privacy, regardless of the underlying reason, should be provided access to a single-user restroom. However, no student shall be required to use such a restroom because they are transgender or gender nonconforming. I'll repeat, any student who has a need or desire for increased privacy, regardless of the underlying reason, should be provided access to a single-user restroom. To be clear, it is within your students' rights to request to use a single-user restroom for any reason. I just find that important to let anybody know that we should be protecting all of our students. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gauss. I will just say as a point of order, I'm sure that we will ensure that our policies are being followed at our middle school as they are written, and encourage that that feedback be shared to our administration. Any other board comments? Mr. Anderson?
Phil said most of what I wanted to talk about in a much more adult way. I was disheartened to hear town councilors speaking of Board of Ed decisions being made that we had no input on. And I don't want that to be a precedent going forward. And I'm not going to press it any more than that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Gauss. I'm totally my fault for not being clear enough, but by career college readiness, we really do mean like all of the aspects. So in our survey that we're sending out, we are hitting on the points of the technical schools and the trade-related jobs, also along with the college and, you know, more four-year university schools. So just want to let you know.
Thank you.
Any other board member comments? All right, I will wrap us up then. First, I just want to say that I appreciate, Steve, in your comments, the intentional efforts of our district on alignment and coherence, looking at our district improvement plan, our Portrait of a Learner efforts, and with our budget. I was going to reiterate our Portrait of a Learner contest, which is due on the 27th. Highly encourage our students to participate in that. I don't think I heard it in our high schooler updates. We do have some students who have artwork at the Pearl Street Library. I think folks forget about our Pearl Street Library, a great little space, and also highlighting some of our student work. I want to give a shout out to our staff who participate in our after school programming. I have a child participating in our interscholastic middle school, elementary school program, and two kiddos participating in Invention Convention. And those opportunities are priceless for just not only student relationships and excitement for after school programming, but just college and career readiness skills and all of those things. So thank you to those folks. I want to give up an update on our PJ totals. We are a top 5 district with over $6,000 raised. Since 2018, we have raised over $57,000 for Connecticut Children's Medical Center. Darlene, thank you. I do encourage you to share these comments as well with the council. They do have different resident requirements, so just make sure that is there. I also encourage you to reach out to our Town Social Services and Enfield Together Coalition. They might be helpful in highlighting the that project in particular. Maureen, I hear your comments, and I want to remind the public of the communication that was shared by our superintendent in February of 2025 in relation to immigration. State and federal law protect the rights of children to attend public schools regardless of their immigration status, to the point that town and states do not track which students are documented citizens and which are not. Our schools are committed to providing safe and inclusive learning environments for all students. Any decisions or interactions involving ice on school property or during the school day are going to be handled by our school superintendent. All administration and secretaries are aware of that protocol. I also want to take a moment to clarify some of the discussion around our financing and some of the things that Phil mentioned. First, Phil, I want to clarify that the audit was a town process and was not our audit, so there are some constraints around that. I made a comment when we presented that. I encourage you to speak to your town council leadership regarding any questions or outstanding concerns you have about that. As far as what you see for funding on EdSite, I want to remind folks that includes all funding, not just town allocations, so that does include all grant allocations, and many grants are multi-year grants, so just some things to consider when looking at that information. I'm going to share a statement from our caucus regarding the town council allocations, but before I read that statement, I want to clarify a couple really foundational pieces. First, this was not board action. This request did not come from the Board of Education. We were informed of this. I also will share that I did have a conversation and communication with Phil prior to the town council meeting. So your minority leader was aware of this situation prior to the meeting. So I do want to briefly acknowledge the recent town council action related to the MOU and their request to provide us with additional allocation. The Board of Education was made aware of this request, and we appreciate the work of our superintendent and central office that they've done to outline various options in that sustainable and purposeful way. While the creation of the MOU itself was not a bipartisan decision, there has been bipartisan support, thank you, Phil, including from members of the party that originally created it, to dissolve the MOU in order to maximize taxpayer dollars and move away from passing funds back and forth. The town council made the decision on this matter, which is within their authority. At the same time, it's important to recognize that it's not the council's role or their purview to dictate specific line items. That responsibility lies with our superintendent. Once an allocation is made, if they decide to make one, then it becomes board business, which Steve has already outlined a long-term sustainable lens for what he's created. He proactively shared that, although we have not yet received the allocation. It's my understanding that the mayor and deputy mayor intend to place this item on the agenda for the next town council meeting. Their action directly impacts our budget timeline, particularly as we prepare to present a preliminary budget at our next meeting, which underscores the urgency of this decision, along with following auditor reports. I appreciate the continued collaboration of the council and their strong support of the residents of Enfield Public Schools. I also want to thank our staff, finish off the rest of this school year strong and start off the 2026 year in a positive way. Thankful for all of their efforts, and that will conclude my official board member comments for that. New business. We have on the agenda here the 9,000 series. As part of our ongoing bipartisan effort to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of board meetings so they remain focused on board business and ensure meaningful discussions occur publicly with public input, we're bringing forth the revised 9,000 series. Ms. Broculio, as chair, will share some more information about this effort and any recommendations that she has.
The Policy Committee has been working to transition from the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, or CABE, policy manual to the Shipman and Goodman manual, with much of that work focused on consolidating policies for clarity and efficiency, as Chair Pickett mentioned. At the same time, there are key policies, such as our student representation, that shape the character of our educational community and deserve careful consideration. Because CABE is much more prescriptive, and because new considerations have been raised from multiple members of the board, I believe it is important that we revisit this discussion in committee before a first read occurs. Doing so will ensure that we are being thoughtful, inclusive, and aligned before bringing these policies back to the full board.
I make a motion to table the first reading and send it back to the policy committee.
Second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Kober?
Just some quick comments, and I think Chair Pickett and Policy Committee Chair Bacuglio summed it up pretty good. I think there's definitely room for improving efficiency and streamlining policies. However, when we did come to look at the 9,000s as caucuses and then as individual board members, we did see some stuff that we would like to see in there, or things that we think may be reasonable to amend somewhere in between what we currently have and getting it down to a slimmer version as we see with Shipman. So once again, I just want to state I think this is a good example of good communication across between all board members, and I look forward to making some amendments in committee and seeing this come back up for board action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kober. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Procoglio?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Mrs. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. Gauss?
Yes.
Mrs. Kiner?
Yes.
Mr. Kober?
Yes.
Mrs. McGuire Bruce?
Yes.
Board Chair Pickett?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. So that, just for the public, that will be brought back to the policy subcommittee that meets next week. Next week or the week after, the 20th? 20th. The 20th. And then we will be bringing them forth for a first reading. All right, on to board committee reports. We're going to start with you, with Ms. Kiner, with the curriculum committee.
On December 18th, 2025 at 5 p.m., the Curriculum Committee met in the office of Michelle Middleton. Ms. Middleton presented an overview of the district improvement plan and areas of focus that her steering committee have been working on. The Portrait of a Learner and the acronym CLIMB provided the framework for developing meaningful and strategic planning and outlined the competencies that empower students to climb towards a successful future. The steering committee is currently building I can statements to correlate with these competencies at every grade level from K through 12. The curriculum committee provided feedback on these I can statements, and Ms. Middleton will share these with her steering committee. The rollout of the new multi-tiered system of supports, framework, and protocols were discussed, as well as the creation of the same for grades 6 through 8. Much discussion centered on improving the quality and effectiveness of professional development days for the staff, considering staff feedback on their needs, interests, and desires for professional development, and utilizing in-house talent of many veteran teachers were among the suggestions of the committee. Ms. Middleton gave updates on curriculum audits and the walkthroughs being performed at all levels, with the focus being effective small group instruction. Finally, in order to improve school climate and culture, teams are being trained in the restorative practices as outlined by Joe Brummer, an expert in this field. The hope is to have all buildings trained in restorative practices beginning next year. The next curriculum meeting will be Wednesday, January 21st at 5:30 in Michelle Middleton's office.
Kiner,
You're welcome.
Finance Committee.
All right. The Finance Committee met on January 5th. We reviewed the certification of expenditures for the month of December. We looked at an overview of the 2026 budget status, where we discussed why some accounts, as Phil mentioned, reflected a surplus and others a deficit. Some of those were, for example, salaries of unfilled positions are being paid out by long-term subs, et cetera. We did discuss the need for a joint insurance meeting with the town and discuss the importance of collaboration between our business manager and the town finance manager. We also began looking at the 2027 budget. Mr. Macchio and his staff are working diligently to find cost savings within that budget, which will then allow us, hopefully, for the ability to strategically and sustainably add in things to our budget that will help move our district forward. Our next meeting will be on February 2nd.
Mr. Kober?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question to the Finance Committee Chair, because I know I looked at the document, but I don't have it in front of me. Do you know, like, approximately the surplus for the end of the year, what we're projecting at? I know, obviously, it's tentative.
I don't have it in front of me either. I don't know.
At the time of the meeting, it was approximately 1.4 million.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Macchio.
However,
Thank you, Mr. Macchio.
we also had further conversation and discussion regarding any dollars appropriated towards the insurance fund would be removed from that, which would drastically lower it, probably to somewhere between 500 to 600,000.
Thank you, Mr. Macchio, for that clarification. Policy.
We've kind of already touched on this, but our next meeting is January 20th in room 213 at Elkhorn at 5 p.m. And obviously we'll be addressing the new concerns that were brought up around our 9,000 series and continue work on that.
Thank you. Brief update on leadership. So typically when we meet as leadership, first our order of business is to review our upcoming agendas. So we spend lots of time reviewing our agendas and collaborating together to ensure that our agendas are jointly agreed upon and reflect the business of the board. We also reviewed a draft of the 26-27 calendar, which will be coming at our next meeting. We are working on continuing to collaboratively plan our meetings with purpose and ensuring that our joint priorities are addressed and at the front of our meetings. Mr. Kober?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick addition from the Leadership Committee. As the Board Chair mentioned, the upcoming agendas are discussed. So just for public awareness, our next meeting, January 27th, beyond just a school calendar, that will be the meeting the superintendent will present his superintendent's proposed budget for next year. So just want to make sure the public's aware that that will be an important meeting to tune into. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kober, for that reminder. I will also share that I have given that update to Town Council as well, that we will be having our first public presentation of the budget on the 27th. I've invited them all to make sure they view or attend so they are informed of our public discussion. All right, we're going to go to liaison reports. School reports is not officially here on the agenda, but I will pause here to make sure if there's anybody with any school reports or updates. I'm going to go just down the row. We're just going to start with Mr. Cooley.
First, on behalf of the Cultural Arts Commission, I just wanted to mention that there's a Red Poetry, Red Art, and Red Tea event at the library on February 14th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they are accepting visual art submissions until January 25th and poetry submissions until January 30th. And then for Henry Barnard, I just wanted to quickly name that they have a food shelf donation boat that will remain docked in the all-purpose room through the end of the month. Please donate some non-perishables if you can. And they're also looking for a co-president to represent them for the PTO. So contact them if you're interested.
Ms. Gerard.
So I have a few. Parkman School Report. The PTO is actually meeting right now, or they might be done. And they actually did that by Zoom. The Special Persons Dance is on February 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Enfield High School. So please remember that this is not a drop-off event, and more information will be posted soon about how to register. I like to kind of just throw that in there just in case. PTO is also having their Red Robin fundraiser night is on January 27th at 6 o'clock. Grade 5 committee will meet on January 14th at 7 p.m. at the Parkman Library. If you're a parent of a Parkman 5th grader and would like to join the committee, please come out and help. This will help guide us into creating that awesome event that we usually do at the end of the year for the 5th graders as kind of a send-off into JFK. PTO is seeking donations for their PTO calendar raffle. Your support helps fund exciting events and activities for our students, families, and the teachers as well. And please make sure to check out the Parkman Panthers newsletter for all your up-to-date information. Just a quick update from Kite. So they met on January 7th, and Kite has filled all of their positions for their last parent ambassador and their leadership work group. The mental health committee for Kite will be meeting. Their meeting is going to be happening virtually on January 26th. PLA starts on January 31st. Good luck and have fun to all the parents who are attending this year. Maybe I'll be in attendance. That would be fun. Rocking Chair Readers is expanding into EPS kindergarten classes. This is so exciting for all of the volunteers because not only is it going to be in pre-K, how it currently is with Head Start and ECDC, but they're moving into that. They actually also reached out to some private kindergarten classrooms as well to see if they want to join. Hopefully the volunteers will start going out in February. A few announcements from Kite. Enfield Food Shelf's Lunch Link distributed 309 meals on December 29th. Enfield Kiwanis, is that how you say it? Club is new this year, and they are having a focus on children and working on their End Hunger event that happens in March. Their bike rodeo is also on May 16th. I know we're jumping ahead, but getting it out there. Enfield for Education collected and helped distribute 725 pairs of mittens and gloves for pre-K all the way to high school this year. They're hoping to do bigger and better next year. School Social Services Energy Assistance Program has just opened for gas, electric, and fuel for families in need, so make sure you check that out. Lastly, Kite's next meeting is on February 4th at 5:30 p.m. at the CT State is Nantuck. I swear that's it.
Ms. McGuire Bruce?
Mine is briefer, I think. Mr. Lord and Mrs. Snow reminded families in last week's Gazette about the importance of daily school attendance, which is a hot button topic right now. I know personally it's tough. Germs are going around, but attendance really does matter. Our teachers are covering a lot of material each day, so being present is essential for our students' success. From the PTO, they are currently collecting donations for their annual raffle calendar as well. If anyone has gift cards, event tickets, or other items they would consider donating, they would be incredibly grateful for that support. And then lastly, as we begin to think of the second half of the year, one of the most anticipated days is Field Day. And the PTO would like to once again thank the Leah Auto Group, who generously donated Field Day t-shirts for all of the elementary schools last year. It was a tremendous help to them. And as they look ahead to this year's event, Enfield Street School, and I'm sure all the other schools, would be extremely grateful to partner with Leah Auto Group again, or any other local community partner interested in supporting those special day for our students. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other school? Mr. Kober?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a shout out to our friends and family over at the Educational Resources for Children, also known as ERFC. For those that may not be familiar with them, this nonprofit partners with EPS to provide students with before and after school programs, summer camp, enrichment programs, and family nights. During the month of December, the ERFC after-school programs brought some holiday magic into our buildings with their seasonal celebrations. I was able to attend the Barnard after-school program Christmas party that was held on December 19th. I wanted to take the opportunity to shout out and a big thank you to Miss Maddie for doing an amazing job organizing this welcoming, fun, and memorable event. Many families were able to attend, and the multi-purpose room was full of smiling faces of all ages. To stay up to date with program communications, consider giving them a follow at their social media accounts, which are all titled, quote, ERFC Community News, end quote. My secondary report is regarding the Eagle Academy. I just wanted to quickly mention I was able to complete a walkthrough of the building this past Friday. I had the pleasure of being introduced to the director and some staff members, seeing the classrooms where some of our young, hardworking Eagles do their learning. Additionally, just for public awareness, Eagle Academy Director Andrews will be visiting us during our February 10th board meeting for a program update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kober. Go ahead.
Well, I don't think there's much more I can do with JFK today. I mean, I covered my part, and absolutely Principal Brown knocked it out of the park.
Perfect. All right, then we will move on to liaisons. I'm going to make a couple clarifying comments because I think I screwed up some of our representation when we made original appointments. So on joint facilities, I just want to make clear to the public that Phil Kober has been added. So there are 2 members from the minority party and 2 from the majority party. And on joint security, we have 1 from each party, and Bobby will be our representation from joint security. I'm going to start with our joint facilities report, please.
All right, so joint facilities met on January 8th, and we discussed the Parkman roof, which is currently included in the roof referendum that was previously passed. The committee is considering the pre-K to 5 modernization plan and the possibility that Parkman may serve as a site for one of the new schools. The town council and town manager will need to determine whether to proceed with the Parkman roof project or instead pursue a 5-year maintenance plan. The condition of school roofs, particularly Parkman, must be carefully considered as pre-referendum work is finalized. This matter has been, again, referred to the town council for a decision. The next meeting is scheduled for February 12th at 6 p.m.
Joint insurance.
I'm going to defer to Board Chair Pickett. You know, it was mentioned that there's an upcoming meeting.
Yep, so I'm going to defer to Steve's comments where he's worked with our...
Defer.
I'm gonna no. In the process of being scheduled.
Thank you. Joint security, Ms. Kiner.
Joint security meeting is going to be on February 13th at 9:30 a.m. in the Skidco room at Town Hall.
I was just going to supplement to that. So the regular meeting that was scheduled for January 9th was canceled, and Ms. Kiner mentioned the next scheduled meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Gerard, pre-ref. So I will publicly share, I don't know if I did last meeting, Janet Cushman is an official member of the pre-ref committee. Our liaisons are Ms. Gerard and Mr. Gauss. So Ms. Gerard, if you want to give us a report.
Perfect. So the pre-referendum committee met on January 7th. The meeting is available for viewing on ETV. I just want to remind everybody that you can also watch it as well live during that time. The design team continues to develop the proposed educational program, project schedule, and final design details. Discussion included a comparison of the costs of short-term repairs to existing buildings versus the long-term financial impact of the proposed plan on taxpayers. There was also discussion regarding the timing of the referendum ballot, with consideration given to early fall or November. Steve stole a little bit of my thunder here. The next community conversation will be held on February 4th at 6 p.m. at Enfield High School's auditorium. This is really important for families to go to and really put your voice out there. You can also email, and I want to make sure I give this email out properly, and it is on the school's website. It is very accessible. You can find it very easily. It is preref@enfieldschools.org. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can actually email that directly to them, ask the questions as you go. They do actively look at that email address, and they will answer your questions. The pre-K, like I just said, the pre-K district plan is on the webpage, and all of the documents and the presentations are also posted there as well. The next committee meeting is scheduled for January 28th at 6 p.m. in the Skidco room. It is a public meeting. You can go and sit, but there is no public comment. That is it.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Gauss?
I'd just like to put a great big exclamation point on the end of what Ms. Gerard said, because there are a lot of people in the community that are saying they don't have information. It is available. They can watch the meeting as it happens. They can attend if they'd like. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Perfect. Let's move on to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the special Board of Ed meeting minutes from December 8th, which was our training?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kober, seconded by Mr. Gauss. Can we get a show of hand? Any discussion on that? Show of hand vote on that? That looks like 9 in favor, none against. And can I get a motion to approve our regular Board of Ed meeting minutes for December 9th, 2025?
Motion.
Second.
So moved by Ms. McGuire-Bruce. I think it was seconded by Mr. Kober. Any discussion? All in favor? That's 9 in favor, none against. We are going to move on to our approval of accounts and payroll. Again, I'll remind our public, we are following the new procedure since we do include the certification fully in our board packet. Thank you. I don't have my mic on. Just to remind the public, we're going to follow our new procedure of approving the expenditures in an expedited way since it's included fully in our packet.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the certification of expenditures for December of 2025.
Second.
You got to move it first.
Oh,
I moved it. Yeah, second.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? 9 in favor, none against.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the certification of grants and Head Start expenditures for the month of December 2025.
Second.
So moved by Ms. McGuire-Bruce, seconded by Ms. Gerard. Any discussion? Ms. Snoop? Oh, come on. All in favor? 9 in favor, 0 against. Thank you for that. Correspondence and board communications. I believe there is none. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Moved by Mr. Kober, second by Mr. Gauss. All in favor? 9 in favor, none against. Thank you.